Hello, my name is Jack Hathaway. I'm the town administrator for Norfolk, and today we have a special edition of Conversation Corner. We're going to talk to you about the special election that we have on June 24th and the need we have for a new public safety building. I'm going to introduce in a minute the two chiefs, Chiefs Charles Stone from the police department and Chief Cole Bushnell from the fire department, who will highlight the needs of the building and why we are asking you for this important question today.
Good morning. We're calling from the Norfolk Police Station and Fire Station. We're hoping for a positive vote on June 24th. We're having a debt override for a construction of a new building. As you look at the building from the street, the left-hand side was built in 1966, and the right-hand side was built in 1985 and it was opened in 1986. We have some serious issues going on inside the building. As far as it's being outdated, needs a lot of work, circulation issues, and certainly parking and septic. We're hoping for a good vote on June 24th. We hope that you'll support us for a new building.
Good morning. Certainly glad to be here today. This is our first opportunity to really bring the question of the public safety facility to you, the voters. And we're hoping to do today is to try to emphasize some of the points that we talked about during the recent town meeting. As Chief Stone indicated, we're looking at the overall structure of the building. We're hoping to bring you inside today to give you a first-hand account of some of the conditions that our staffs confront each and every day as we bring service to you, the community. For the public entering the public safety building, this would be the entrance point that you'd be presented. The foyer area consists of a number of locations where you can pick up forms that are needed to process anything from accident reports to firearms and fingerprints. And also you're greeted by the dispatcher who staffs the communications center. And as I said, as the public would generally enter to either visit the police or fire, this would be the entry point that you would have. From here, we're going to transition to the police department administration side.
Originally, when the station was built, this door right here was where the armory was supposed to be. We actually had to change it over and make it into a supply closet for paper goods and things like that. So that's where that ended up being. In here is our administrative secretary's office. We have two secretaries that work full-time, processing paperwork, all the reports, accidents, everything that occurs within the police department goes through here. All the details that you see out on the street. So a lot of that work is done in here, and we have two people that do that full-time. Police chief's office is probably the biggest office in the building. There was one in the old building, but it was very, very small. This office here was designed to, as one of the larger buildings, so they could have meetings in there and do the work that a police chief would do. This room here was originally designed as a general supply closet. It ended up, as a result of the building being built in 1985, it ended up being the emergency, the E911 room, which enhanced 911. We've had several versions of 911, but now we're on the enhanced 911. And this room has the recorders for 911 and all the phone equipment that comes into the building. This is where that is kept. It has to be kept cool. We have two actual rooms that have the 911 equipment. It has to be kept cool, and it wasn't designed for air conditioning. The building, this room here also in the beginning was also supposed to be a room to develop film for processing of evidence. We were never able to use it for that. So it is the 911 room as we speak right now. Over here is a supply closet for janitorial. It is about 5 by 8. In this room here, also, back when the leaks were really bad in the roof, we had to set up a system where we could drain the water from the roof and came down into this what they call a slop sink for the janitorial. And there's a piping that goes to it. It was just something we had to devise one day when we were just getting killed with the leaks in the building. Next room is the detectives. We have 3 detectives. One works days, and he's also our prosecutor. Yeah, we have one full-time at night, and based on the schedule, we have one that works part-time so that we're covered 7 days a week. They work 3:30 to 11:30. Three desks. We have a sergeant that oversees them, Sergeant Robert Shannon. 3 desks, 3 computers, and the room is not very big. And unfortunately, right off of that is the evidence storage, and that is woefully small, way smaller than we need, because you have to have a supply for regular evidence, and then you have to have supply for drugs and weapons. And unfortunately, that is really small. So we need to improve on that size. All right, next room is the lieutenant's office. Originally, when the addition was designed for the 1985 opening, it was designed as the sergeant's office. We were slated for 4 sergeants at that time and a lieutenant. Well, when the building was designed, 1985 was the first year they had a lieutenant. There was no office for the lieutenant, so we made that into into the lieutenant's office, and the sergeants are in the other room, which we'll see a little bit. This room is our conference room. Now, over the years, when Town Hall didn't have a meeting room, the various boards, Planning Board, Conservation, Zoning Board, all met in this room right at this table. Once the Town Hall was built, we got it back. The officers eat their meals here. Most of our officers live out of town. More than 2/3 of them live out of town. So they have to eat their meals, and this is where they do that. There's the opportunity for reviewing training tapes on the TVs that you see in the room, and that's what that is there for. This particular closet was actually, back in 1985, they didn't have VCRs available for police, so there was actually a slide projector and a screen in this that was stored in a room, and this is what this was designed for. This particular room door now leads to our armory, where we store all our ammunition and weapons, additional weapons that the department uses from time to time. So this is what this room is designed for. This room was originally for the emergency management director. It was designed for easy access into the building from the rear, and we never used it as such. It was for a short time used as a lieutenant's office until they moved down the hall a little bit. Right now, what we use it for is to process license to carries and FID cards. We interview any witnesses or suspects in this room, because our other 2 interview rooms are now used for something else. A lot of file storage in here. 2 computers. This computer is designed for the use of for the license carry and FID. So that all of that equipment is all that work is processed here. Obviously, one of the problems that we have is storage and space for that, and we end up having to store it, have file cabinets in the hallway now, just because there is no place else to put them. That's part of what this room is. In this particular room, this is where the main computer is for the emergency 911, and it also is for our incident management system. Because the room gets pretty warm because of the computer equipment, we have ceiling air conditioning, but we also had to get a separate air conditioning unit that you see there on the right-hand side of the room. Unfortunately, it's not quite what it should be. The room should be larger, and we should also be able to lock it, but because the room heats up so bad in the summer months, and sometimes even in the spring and fall, we have to leave the door open so it can get the air conditioning that comes from the rest of the building. This room here, same as the 911 room, were both interview rooms, the way the building was designed back for 1985 when we opened. And we actually used them as an interview room for a very short time. Because of space concerns and things that we didn't get, that we ended up needing in the next couple of years, they both became different usage. This particular room now is used for storage, as you can see, and it is for our one female officer. That's her locker room. If you look up on the ceiling, you can see that we've had to do some repairs. This is where the water seems to come in the worst from the flat ceiling. We had to actually cut a panel into there so that we could get the water to come out. And we have a huge 50-gallon trash barrel that we put the water right under that panel when it's a heavy rainstorm. One of the problems that we have is storage and space in this room. This is called the Sally Port. That's where we bring our prisoners in. And one of the issues here is we also double the room or triple the room for usage by making it so that we can maintain our vehicles, either washing them, replacing supplies in the first aid, or other issues. Checking under the hood for making sure everything's good there. It also, unfortunately, is storage. We have a snow blower, the things we have, bottled water and bicycle storage for the lost and found bicycles. We have no place to put any of these things. They end up inside so that we can maintain them as a piece of evidence. As you see on the left, there's 2 oil tanks. Those tanks were put inside in the late 90s as a result of the law that passed in the 80s that said that you can't store fuel underground anymore. It has to be above ground. So we had to get two 330-gallon tanks to replace a 1,000-gallon underground tank. When we have a prisoner come in into the Sally Port, we try to take them out of the vehicle. We have to park the vehicle over onto the left-hand side because the door, you can only get the prisoner out on one side because there's not enough room. If we have a prisoner that's combative, he comes in, he may have been under the influence of something, or he just may not want to be here. Sometimes they end up in some sort of a wrestling match, and they need all the officers to bring him inside. That doesn't usually go well because, if they want to try to get away or to just to fight the officers, there's a lot of things in here that can become a weapon, unfortunately, and sometimes the officers can get hurt, or the person that we've arrested can get hurt by trying to keep him in custody. So we try to bring them into the building with as many officers as possible, and get there safely for everybody. There's a lot of things in here that can become a weapon, unfortunately, and sometimes the officers can get hurt, or the person that we've arrested can get hurt by trying to keep him in custody. It's not always easy, given the space restrictions that we have. Okay, when you saw us, we came in with a prisoner through the Sally Port door. Generally, we bring them over to this desk. If they're a combative type prisoner, we might probably handcuff them to the bar that's on this desk, and then book that prisoner in here, right here with a computer. Fingerprints are done here. We have a phone if they would need to make a bail call, and all the evidence, or the paperwork and supplies needed to book a prisoner from here. Once they're booked, we if it's an adult prisoner, male prisoner, we'll take them into the left here, and I'll show you that. Into here, this is where we have 2 cells. As you can see, the hallway is very narrow. If you have a combative prisoner who wants to fight you going into a cell, not only is it difficult to get the prisoner in there, but you can't get additional people in, additional officers in, to help you put the prisoner into the cell. Back in the 50s and 60s, the bars on the cells were allowed. After somewhere in the 80s, they made us, as a result of the suicide prevention laws, have glass or plexiglass put on the bars so that people couldn't try to hang themselves from the bars. Everything you see in here is back to the original building, the 65, 66 construction era. And it's been outfitted with exhaust fans into the cells. The toilets had to be replaced in that late 80s reconstruction of the cells area. But it is what it is, and it's too small. Every year we have a problem trying to get the cells to pass the inspection that is done by the state. And they're waiting for us to build a new building, and at some point they're going to close us down and tell us we have to house our prisoners elsewhere.
What should it be? Is it bigger cells or bigger space?
The cells should actually be bigger. It should be with a more modern design equipment, and there should be an area large enough for what they call a day room, or an area where you can get a prisoner out for exercise if they're in here for the entire weekend, without it becoming a safety hazard for both the prisoner and the officers that have to work with them. If you go into any other newer station, that area is much larger than what we have, and the cell block itself is larger and more modern. There should be video taping of the cell area. We have that inside the cell where we can monitor that at dispatch. But it's a 20-year-old technology, and it needs to be upgraded with, and could get done with a new building. This area here is our locker room, male locker room. Again, I have 26 officers who have to store equipment in here, whether it be from the Metro LEC tactical team or from the officers that work in the department. That's full-time and reserve officers. So I have a total of 27. One is a female, and I've shown you the female locker room, which doubles as our supply closet. It's an unsafe situation. If a prisoner was able to break free, they could get into this room, and there is weapons and sometimes evidence that might be stored overnight in the lockers. So we have to make sure that they stay locked at all times. It's a definite safety concern for anyone that's working in the building. This is also one of the rooms that we have leaks in the ceiling from the upstairs, because this is where the flat roof area is. It's from the old building. As you can see, we have ceiling tiles that have been pulled down where the leaks occur, and that's where we put the big trash barrels and buckets. There used to be insulation above those ceiling tiles because there's a cement slab roof that's above it from the original design. We had to take all that insulation out when they dealt with the air quality issues within the building, because it was all moldy from the water. This room is our juvenile cell. It's actually shorter than it should be for the bunk space, but it had to fit in a certain area. If you look at the door, it's a solid door. It's supposed to be that way so that the juvenile can't see out. In today's rule, there's supposed to be no visual sighting of any other prisoners within the building for a juvenile. If the person looked out the door, they would see our booking desk and anyone else that might be coming through. In here is our one female cell. The area outside is the matron viewing area. We have a computer for them to, and a video recording system for them to watch the female prisoner in the cell. Because of space concerns, again, outside in this room are also lockers, file storage, refrigerator for the dispatchers to put their food, microwave so they can heat it up so that they're readily accessible to the dispatch desk. From this point over is the old building that was built in 1965, 1966, and from this point back towards me was where we added 3,000 square feet onto the building. So this is the 1985 vintage. The sergeant actually works out of this room. It's a sergeant's office, and it's also the place where all the officers work on their reports. There's various computer terminals in here, so if the report needs to be written, not only do we do shift change in this room, but they write their reports, and it's just not a good situation or the best situation for that function. You see, it's cramped, but This is where 26 or 27 officers have to try to do their job so that we can get the quality of the reports that we send over to the court. See, one of the issues we have is that the septic system was designed in the 1965 era, and unfortunately, it did not get updated when they built the addition back in 1985. So we're still, unfortunately, with the same system we had back then. Right now, it is being pumped once a week at a price of a little over $200 a week. And we've been doing that for several years now, just because the system basically has failed. That's one of our most pressing issues, and we hope that at some point we're going to be able to fix that so that we can have the same ability as everybody else in town has when they flush their toilet. Over here you see the leaching field for the septic system, and as you see, the grass is growing pretty tall, and the reason for that is because they can't mow the lawn anymore, because if they walk across it they sink up to their ankles or higher, and we've had a couple of the guys refuse to mow the lawn as a result. Okay, back in the original building, you can see that the generator building was right there, and as a result of taking the oil tanks out, and the depression that you see is part of that. And unfortunately, water builds up there whether we wash our cars back here or have a rainstorm, and it does not go away. In the winter, it forms ice patches, and unfortunately the officers have slipped and fallen, and some of the firefighters have also. And it's one of the maintenance issues that we have for the exterior of the building, is to get new pavement or to repair the issues that are outside also.
Right now we're located in the apparatus bay, and the area that we're going to discuss at this point is going to be where the firefighters keep their gear. All of our staff that are off duty and our call staff, when they return to the station for an emergency, this will be the first spot that they would come as they enter the building to don their protective clothing. The problem that we have, for instance, is when the firefighters are donning their protective clothing is the proximity to the ladder truck. One of the things that's a constant worry is as the firefighter is donning their protective gear, you get an idea of how much room is needed to move your arms, to place the bunker pants on, and the close proximity that you remain to with this ladder truck. One of the problems that we have is that before the ladder truck pulls out, the firefighter or the officer who is on board this particular unit needs to make sure that any other subsequently responding firefighters are clear of the truck so that we don't have a problem. Fortunately, we've avoided this, and obviously we knock on wood constantly regarding this particular situation. This is the rear bay of where the ladder truck is located. This particular section of the building we had to dedicate to equipment repair, supplies, and also the self-contained breathing apparatus compressor. The compressor itself is used as we refill all of our breathing air bottles from training and from fire incidents. The unit itself needs to be well positioned in the building. It needs a lot of space so that the equipment doesn't overheat. So we needed to sacrifice a bay in this particular area to have this equipment operate functionally. By doing so, we did, quote-unquote, make the building somewhat safer, because this unit was originally located between the apparatus as the apparatus would back in and out of the station. So we wanted to eliminate that as a potential hazard. When the department acquired the ladder truck back in the early 1990s, one of the requirements was that the truck needed to actually fit in the fire station, which is always very helpful. To do so, the station had to be adapted for this particular apparatus. And to do this, the bay had to be modified to ensure that the truck was able to enter the station. By doing so, the clearance is very, very minimal, as it is with the other apparatus. To try to demonstrate this, we'll open the bay door to give you a better idea of the distance involved. As you can see, the clearance is minimal, perhaps 6 inches or less. One of the problems with the drivers for the ladder truck is they have to be very, very careful prior to leaving the station, so they're always very conscious of the door. At this point, we're going to be moving engine 2 ahead to give you an idea of some of the clearance problems that we have exiting the station. The bays that we have for the fire apparatus here are 11 feet in width. National standard requires a minimum of 12 feet. So to ensure that we have the apparatus leave the station correctly, the operators have to be extremely careful as we move forward. One of the things that we've accomplished, though, over the last few years, and certainly thanking the taxpayers, is we have 2 new engines. Unfortunately, both engines had to be engineered and constructed in a manner that they would fit into the small area we have in the station. So I'll do at this point is bring engine 2 ahead to give you an idea of the clearances that we have on either side. And I would remind everyone as you look at this video, again, this particular truck was configured to actually move through in and out of the station as easily as possible. The unit that it replaced prior to the firefighters leaving the station, they actually had to take the mirrors, close the mirrors in. Once they exited the station, they'd have to stop again and push the mirrors back out. So we'll move engine ahead for you so you can take a good look. What confronts a firefighter before they respond on an emergency call with engine 2? And engine 2 is our first out piece for all calls for fires. This is also the unit that will respond mutual aid. Is that the firefighter will prepare himself for the trip, gets properly belted. And with this particular unit, obviously you have to pay attention to the clearances that are available. Unfortunately, the way the facility is together at this point, the firefighter has to be very, very careful, so it precludes being able to simply get in the truck, start it, and move forward quickly. So we're going to take you through an evolution of actually coming out of the station. You'll notice one of the things that I'm doing constantly is scanning back and forth to make sure we have clearance. As you can see right here, I can reach out, and this is perhaps maybe 6 inches to the wall. The other problem is because of the length of the apparatus, and this being an engine is much shorter than the ladder truck, you have to make sure that you're completely clear of the building prior to turning the wheel. Several years ago, before this engine was acquired, we were responding to a fire situation, and during that time the engine actually hit the wall going out. C1 answer.
Mr. Olsen, just confirming the ladder's on its way back, correct? Car 1, C1, I'll be there in about 2 minutes.
Okay, car 1, do you want to go to the training ground and return the medic to the station?
Okay. We'll be clear if nothing found.
At this point, we'll try to give you a visualization of returning the apparatus to the bay after responding to a call. Camera is located in what we call the officer's chair. So we're going to place the unit in reverse
Find your way over here?
and move back in. No, you're fine. One of the things that's helpful is we have lines painted on the both the front apron and also in the building. Without these lines, it would be much more difficult to back this apparatus in.
How do you know you're not going to hit that in the back? You kind of feel where you're stopping on the tires?
We have some stops that we had to put in. These were recently put in because of an incident where we did strike the ambulance. So with the assistance of the Department of Public Works, we have wheel stops in here. One of the problems that we're finding is that the weight of the trucks are just so heavy that these stops are actually being compressed. So we're probably going to end up with wooden stops before we're done at this point. As I said, during the now going on 5 years I've been here in Norfolk, unfortunately we have had one engine strike the wall going out. That was a significant damage. We had to rebuild the fire pump. And recently we've had one minor incident where the engine has backed into the ambulance. It's always an ongoing issue in terms of ensuring that you've got the clearances coming into the building. To ensure that we're able to actually get the apparatus into the station, we've been able to move some things around a little bit. But obviously one of the things that we do have to have is both ambulances here at the station, from the standpoint that they contain the drugs and narcotics that are used by the paramedics providing service. However, one of the things we run into is just how the proximity to the ambulance to the apparatus. With the acquisition of the new apparatus, one of the things that we've been able to do is prior to the acquisition of, for instance, Engine 2, we actually had blocks that were in the station that actually raised apparatus up so that we had the clearance to the bumper areas to make sure that we were able to get in the station without running in to each other. And you can see right here with the deviation between the two back steps of both Rescue 1 and Engine 2, there really isn't that much clearance, but engineering the apparatus to fit in the building, we've been able to at least remove some of the blocking situations. When we reconfigured the layout of the apparatus, one of the most unfortunate things that we had to accomplish was placing the units that did the most runs going out the back. One of the things that we had to do to ensure that that would work is we had to remove all of the hardware from the doors so that we had adequate clearance to get the ambulances in. These are the original doors from 1966. They've really not been upgraded other than some basic repairs. But again, the only way to get the apparatus in a configuration that would work for us was to use this type of format. It is a little unsafe because as this apparatus leaves the facility in an emergency situation, there's always a chance of oncoming traffic from the police department side, and we also have traffic which includes civilians that would come to grab permits or anything like that coming from the opposite side. So leaving the facility is always a challenge at this point. Presently, the on-duty fire staff are located within this temporary housing trailer. The trailer is 14 by 70, and it holds the 3 firefighters that are working the shift. It's also being used as our training facility as well. One of the problems that we have with the trailer is particularly during times of inclement weather, the firefighters coming down the stairs at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning to come across the back parking lot to enter the station. We do have an automatic door opener which allows them to access the station directly from the back, but as I said, during inclement weather this has been a challenge. Last winter we did have a firefighter who was injured on the ice conditions that had resulted here. Fortunately, it did not result in any loss of work, but it's something that we're very cognizant of. With the trailer being provided by the town, it's certainly made life much easier for the firefighters on the shift. We've got an ability to have a location where all their meals are prepared in a very clean situation. We have an area where they can provide laundry for their station wear during the shift, and also they have an area where they can relax during the off hours after 6 o'clock. They're allowed back here. One of the things it does do is it helps us to conform to a number of regulations under the National Fire Protection Association in terms of firefighter safety and health, as well as OSHA. So the trailer, as it stands, at about $10,600 a year in terms of leasing, is at least given us an opportunity to be a bridge to hopefully the construction of a new public safety facility. The trailer itself has been provided for a basis not to exceed 5 years. After 5 years, we will have to look at other options in terms of housing the firefighters, because the trailer at that point will be ready to be reconditioned. Some of you may recognize this room in the back of the station. It was a room originally built in 1966 and was used by a number of boards and commissions for town meetings, and other functions. It also served as a training area for, at that point, an all-volunteer fire department. In the year of approximately 2001, the fire department began to transition to career staff working 24-hour-a-day shifts. So one of the things that had to be done is this room had to be retrofitted to accommodate these shift firefighters. One of the problems that we have with this room, and one of the reasons that we looked for placing the firefighters in the trailer, was this particular sink was used by the firefighters as they prepared their meals and also cleaned emergency equipment after a call. Obviously, this is something that's unacceptable by national standards and national codes, and also certainly from just a daily operations situation. The room has been transferred now into a storage area. This is the first time in probably the last 5 years that the department has actually had an area we can use for dry storage. We do have a temperature controlled for our medical supplies, and from that standpoint, it's worked out fairly well. One of the things that you probably saw as you went through our building today on video is the facility itself has 3 restrooms. Under OSHA requirements, even though Massachusetts is not an OSHA state, OSHA requires a minimum of 4 restrooms in the facility. We have no restrooms that are handicap accessible. We have one that is used as a handicap bathroom, but does not meet all the requirements for handicap. Also, the facility has 2 showers, one on the police side, one on the fire side, and just having only 2 showers available is another reason why we look to move to the trailer. This particular room, in 2004-2005, we had a water leak back here, caused a mold issue, which was remediated in 2005, but given that situation was another reason why we did move our personnel into the safety of the temporary housing trailer. The back of the former meeting room was configured originally to accommodate 2 firefighters when the shifts were comprised of 2, and prior to bringing advanced life support, the paramedics, to Norfolk. As we transitioned to paramedic service in 2004 and went to 3 firefighters on the shift, we needed to ensure that they had areas to rest during the overnight hours. This particular area was originally configured to sleep 2 firefighters. The firefighters themselves configured this to sleep 3. The problems that we ran into is the only cots that would fit in this area were beds that were provided by the Department of Corrections. One of the other situations that we had with these particular rooms is, again, national standard requires these to be a minimum of 60 feet. These rooms measure 11 by 4, so they're woefully short. The problems that we had once we had the shifts configured with 3 with the paramedic service is in the middle of the night when the firefighters were preparing to respond to an emergency, we invariably had problems because there just wasn't enough clearance in the rooms for them to be prepared to respond to the next emergency. Another problem that we're confronted with is the location and storage of oxygen. Prior to the acquisition of the trailer, the oxygen was stored on the apparatus floor, which is in violation of OSHA and National Fire Protection Standards, as well as Department of Health standards. Oxygen, as an oxidizer, is required to be stored a minimum of 20 feet from any source of ignition, which includes vehicle exhaust. Even in its present location now, in this former dorm area, we're still in violation of the area in terms of storage, and we also have problems in terms of having it stored in an area which is not rated for oxygen storage as such. However, it's the best we can do under the circumstances, and at least we have the oxygen storage away from the apparatus as far as we can possibly do.
Okay, this is the generator that powers the building when the power goes out in town. As I said earlier, we had a 15 kW generator. This is a 60 kW, and this will power everything that we have presently in the building, where the other one did not. It's fueled by propane, and we have propane storage right behind this, that also for the heat for the building and for the propane for the generator. Well, when you look in here, you see our motorcycle. You see our vehicle, it's called a Think. We use it for parades and special functions. You see all the weightlifting equipment. We have storage for the Metro LEC munitions. At the back of the room, you see tires on a rack. We also have a four-wheeler for if we have to go out into the woods or the high-tension lines or areas not accessible by our vehicle. We use that. We also have the bicycles that are hanging on the wall. We have some storage in here. We have a motorcycle that's a piece of evidence. You know, it's unfortunate, but you see what you see there on the floor in those boxes is our police and fire records, where we have no space inside to store those. This building has a heater in it, so we can defrost at the most right now one vehicle. So we don't have storage to put all our vehicles in out of the weather. So the wear and tear from the weather is 24/7. Most people in a home have a garage to put their vehicle in. Ours stay outside all the time.
Thank you very much for viewing this. We're grateful for your time. My name is Jim Lehan. I'm your Norfolk Board of Selectmen. We encourage you to come down to the Public Safety Building. Both chiefs, Chief Bushnell and Chief Stone, will be here on this Saturday and the following Saturday. We'll be having an open house from 9 to 12. We hope you'll take the time to come down and visit. This is your Public Safety Building. These are your folks that serve you so well. We're very grateful for you taking the time to watch this. We hope that we will have your consideration on June 24th in the election. Most importantly, please vote. Thanks again for your time.